Hi, friends. Happy Tuesday. And yes, for those who are curious, and I know you always are, the sun is now shining today in San Diego. It wasn't earlier on, which was a little disturbing. Gray skies, all that kind of thing. But now it is gloriously beautiful. And my husband and my little pup, well, not a pup anymore, she's 2.25, are outside enjoying the sunshine. And I am here talking to you today about part 2 of our networking. I started last week and I talked about how you connect with people, or rather how you present yourself, especially at online events, with your backgrounds and your camera angles and that kind of thing, and the information that you give. And we talked about creating a link somehow that would have information on it, on a digital business card or a web page, something like that, to make it easier. And today I'm going to talk about what happens next. So I am Andrea Kuchin. I am part of PhD in Follow-Up with my business partner, Robert Rosenthal. You can find out all about me at phdinfollowup.com/Andrea Kuchin. That exactly is one of the links that I was suggesting. That's the kind of thing that I suggest, so that you have just one link and people can find everything they need to about you. My email address is andrea@phdinfollowup. You can call or text me on 858-252-1190. And the Facebook group that I'm streaming into now, as well as LinkedIn and YouTube, is called PhD in Follow-Up. And we're all about helping you get more loyal customers and referrals and sales so that you make more money. But because of the clever way that we do it, it also reduces your stress level. Because often more money, more clients, more hustle is more stress. Often not having enough clients is very stressful. So we solve those problems, okay, by helping you set systems up. So what is the system? Well, it's a strategy, first of all, which you have to figure out for yourself, but I'm going to show you how. And then it's a series of systems that you will use to make life easier and implement the strategy that you've decided. So you're at a networking event. It doesn't matter whether it's a live one in person or whether it's online. And you've met someone you think is a good potential client. What do? They've collected your contact information through the chat because you pasted either your link, like I suggested last week, or whatever it is that you had saved and copied with your contact information. So they can now reach out to you. Yeah, nice one. They won't, because they're too busy selling their thing. So if you're of the viewpoint that if somebody's interested, they'll come to me and I've given them the information, you'll never get off the ground. Sorry, but you do have to push. You just don't have to push hard. You don't need to be annoying. And I can't tell you the number of times people have said to me, thank you so much for the follow-up. And that was before I was PhD in follow-up. So they weren't trying to be nice because of the name of my company or because of my business. This strategy that I'm going to give you the tips to now is something I've been using since my Filofax in the 80s, 90s, a long time ago anyway. So what you need is a system that allows you to communicate somehow, doesn't matter how, and record. So you need a communication system, which has to be either email or text or your social media, doesn't matter, or all of them. Greeting cards, digital business cards, LinkedIn messages, doesn't matter. But you need to have something preferably that can manage all those. It can be a spreadsheet, doesn't matter. A place to put the data of the people. In other words, all the information that they give you, plus your own notes, which would include things like where you met them, although those could be tags, what you said to them, why you think they're interested, something you picked up about them that you wouldn't find anywhere else, like, mum of 3 kids, or, single dad, or has a dog, or something like that, that helps you build the relationship. And then the other super duper 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 important thing is a reminder when you need to take the next step, whatever that step may be. Okay, you need to be able to, I'm just repeating what I've just said, keep a database of all the information about your client or your potential client or your customer or anybody else. Actually, you can employ this system for everybody you know, because it'll remind you when you have to go to the dentist. So all the data, including your notes, keep notes, because you want to know as much as possible about somebody. When you're in a one-on-one meeting with them, or even in a small breakout room in a networking event, you need to be able to take notes on what they said, scribble it down, and then put it into your database afterwards. I'm just getting lots of messages, and I just want to double check that I've not got messages telling me that sometimes I get messages saying the sound's gone. So I just want to make sure that's not happening. Okay, so save all the data, including notes that you've taken, in a place that is always accessible. And as a little aside, I would say export it every couple of months or so, or couple of weeks, or every few days, or every time you add a whole load of people in, as a spreadsheet, so you've got a backup somewhere. Always get into the habit of putting a backup somewhere, because you never, ever know when things might suddenly disappear. And there's a story on that. I'm challenged by Instagram at the moment. Anyway, so if there's anyone out there who's a brilliant expert in Instagram or knows how to contact them, let me know. So back to this, somewhere to store the data. That's the most important thing. Then you need a system that's going to help you remember when you have to follow up, right? So the information that they give you, their contact information, the notes that you take, and the reminders of when you're going to follow up with them. Right, so you've been at this networking event. Now, here's a little trick, and I know this because I messed up myself. I booked myself so many pretty much back-to-back networking events on Zoom, because it was like, hey, it's easy, it's on Zoom, I don't have to travel in between, so I can sit in networking events for 4 hours at a time. First of all, you get a lot of people to contact then, and secondly, if you don't schedule the time in to do the follow-up work, there's a chance that won't happen. So I recommend you don't do what I did, because it's quite stressful, that you give yourself the time to do the follow-up work, because at the beginning it'll be slower and longer. You'll get quicker at it later on. So I would recommend, but you need to figure this out for yourself. It needs to be what's best for you in terms of how your business operates, what fits in your schedule. You need to figure it out. Don't take what I say as gospel. Take what I say and do it. And then if it doesn't work, change it. But figure out what works for you. Okay, that's all I'm saying. I would recommend that your first reach to that person happens within hours of the meeting, preferably the same day. And I recommend, again, depending on where your clients are, that it's a social media outreach. And I would do that on LinkedIn if you're dealing with businesses as a first step. And I would do it on Facebook if you're dealing one-on-one with your clients, right? And send a message with, well, on LinkedIn, you can always do this. You send a message saying, hey, it was great meeting you at such and such today. I thought it would be nice to connect here too. And if it's in Facebook, you just find them, you send a friend request, and I am pretty certain, at least at the time of recording this video, because things change, that you'll be able to send a message saying, we met at such and such an event. So people know who you are. When they know who you are, they will accept your communication, and then you can carry on. Now, after that, I would recommend, say, 24 hours, send an email saying, great talking to you. Here's the information that I promised I'd share with you. Or you can do that first. It doesn't matter. The point is, there are a number of steps, and you need to follow a pattern and write down what your steps are going to be. So they could be step 1, same day, and it doesn't even matter if it's in the evening, initial social media outreach, so LinkedIn or Facebook, or it could be either or, which it could be both. I wouldn't do them both necessarily at the same time, because you'll figure that out later on, because this is a series of touches. Because every time we reach out to somebody, every time we communicate with somebody, we are reminding them who we are, what we do, and why they might be interested in us, right? So the more times we can do that, the better. So it is better, in my view, and I've tried and tested this to some degree, it is better to do several touches over a period of time than everything at once, right? People don't want to go into LinkedIn and find a message from you and then hop into Facebook and find another message from you again, especially not if it's the same wording. You can leave the other one till the following week. Okay. So you reach out to them on social media, and then 24 hours later, you follow up with an email. Now you put that into your database. You put, I was going to say 14th of May, but it's not the 14th of May, it's 11/14. Whatever it is, the 16th, 17th of May. So you put 17th of May, met at Rustic Rituals Meeting, or whatever it's called. Just made that one up. And then you'll set a reminder for 24 hours to send intro email. Your intro email will be in a template somewhere, and you can either have templates set up for the different groups you're in, or you can just drop the group name into the template when you send it off. Okay. And it'll have the links to all the information that you were going to suggest. Now, if you don't have a system that can do templates, like a good email system or something set up, go back and watch my video on the magic of Google, because that shows you how to do it in Google. And you can apply those same principles to whatever it is that you're using on your Mac, because I'm sure they have the same features, or whatever it is you're using on your Windows, right? If you're using Office and you're using Outlook, you can use the same tools as you can in Google. I just did a video on Google because anybody can use Google. So you create a template that you can copy and paste. It's very quick and easy. And then you put in your calendar that you need to be reminded, or in your reminder system, or whatever this is. They used to call it a CRM. CRM seems to have now become synonymous with email marketing, but it isn't. There's much more to it. So put that in your CRM/calendar so that you know to follow up. If you don't have a CRM, I suggest that you have a calendar event, which you call follow-up hour or follow-up 20 minutes or whatever it is. And you just list the people on that particular day that you need to follow up with. And then when you go into the database, you'll see what it was you needed to do, what the next step is for that person. I also, as an aside, suggest that you schedule follow-up time every day so that it's not too overwhelming, so that you've got a little bit done every day. Also, so that you can follow up with people at the correct time. Because otherwise, if you've said 3 days, but you're not going to do your follow-up on Wednesday and it becomes 4 days, you've got out of sync somehow. Okay. It's a good idea to keep it the same. The reason you keep it the same for everybody is because it makes it easy for you and you don't have to think. And the less thinking you have to do, the less stress you experience. Okay. So you put your reminder in some way so that you then get something that says, today you need to reach out to Robert or Andrea. And then you look in Robert or Andrea and it says what you've got to do. Okay. Which will be this email. Now you can leave the email you can leave your follow-up for however long you think is appropriate. It could be another 24 hours or 48 hours this time, or it could be 3 days, or it could be a week, whatever you think is right. You then follow up, and you could, for example, again, this is just an example, send a text message saying, hey, I emailed you last week. Did you get the email? Because if that person is interested in you and they didn't, they can then go and look for it. And you never know, it might be in their spam folder and they might be very grateful. And if not, they'll delete the text message and it doesn't matter. Don't ever think that when you're communicating with people and reaching out to people who have expressed an interest in what you want, that you are being a pain for doing so. You are not. You are being a professional. Because a professional knows that 10 years ago, it could take 12 outreaches, 12 reaches, 12 touches of 12 connections with a person to actually close the sale. That was 10 years ago. Now, because of the amount of communication that is flowing and the number of different streams of communication there are, you can easily double that. So you have to do this if you want to make the sale. Or if you're not a salesperson and you don't like that terminology, and I understand that, you have to make that many connections with a person to build a relationship, which could either lead to a sale or a referral, or them introducing you to something that you then can't live without. Okay, it's a two-way street. Don't ever be shy about following up. This is going to sound like you're bombarding people. You're not. Bombarding people is when you reach out to them cold in social media and you tell them they need your product and you keep hammering them despite the fact that they've said they're not interested. This is not what I'm talking about here. What I'm talking about is somebody you've met at an event of some kind, somewhere, out walking the dog, at the grocery store, at a networking event, waiting in the doctor's surgery or the dentist's surgery while you were chatting. It doesn't matter, but it's somebody that you've actually had a communication with. It could be in a Facebook group or a LinkedIn group or a webinar that you both attended. It doesn't matter. The point is there's a connection there and that person expressed an interest. Once that has happened, you have every right to continue to communicate with them and they with you. Because most communication systems, definitely email marketing, and we're going to talk about that in a minute, allow that person to choose not to hear from you any longer. Okay, so I don't want to spend too much time on this. I can always elaborate the extra bits. So give yourself a reminder. Now, obviously, if that person communicates with you within that time frame, you don't then follow up after the week when they've communicated with you beforehand, right? This is why you need to be on top of your system and get very familiar with how everything works. If you send somebody an email and you get yourself a reminder to follow up the following week, if they haven't responded, if you haven't heard from them, and you do hear from them, you need to then reset, because the week will then start from the communication that you received and returned, right? And it goes from your return communication. So if it takes you 2 or 3 days to get back to them because you're gathering information or something like that, it goes from that day that you then returned that communication, whether it's a text message, an Instagram message, a Facebook message, a phone call, an email, doesn't matter what it is. It's from that point. You're then giving them a week to get back to you, or 2 weeks, or whatever you think is appropriate, right? Then if that hasn't happened, your reminder system will say, you didn't hear from this person. Now it's time to follow up. And you decide how often you do it. And you reset it every time that person does respond. You need to remember how to do that, which is why having a synchronized system is really useful, but you don't have to have, because they cost money and you can pay for them later when you've started making money, because you're closing more sales, because you've got a really robust system in place. So 24 hours to connect on social media, 48 hours to do an email follow-up, give them a week to get back to you. Now, in the meantime, or at that week doesn't have to be a chaser email. That week can be, now you go to the other social media platforms and connect with them there. Oh, now I found you on Facebook. We met at such and such last week or 2 weeks ago or last month or whenever it was. Okay, so that'll be your third one. Or it can be the text message saying, oh, I sent you an email last week. Whatever it is, it can even be a phone call. This will depend a little bit on how many people you're dealing with, and that will depend to a degree on the cost of your product. The more people you're dealing with, probably the less expensive the product, so the less personal the communication has to be. That makes sense. The more expensive your product, the fewer people you're dealing with, the more time you can invest in them, and the more valuable it is to make it real communication, like real emails and real text messages and real phone calls, that kind of thing. And then at some point, you'll be sending them a birthday card, right? Because you'll find out from social media when their birthday is. And you'll find out what their office address is from their business website. Okay. Or if you're communicating quite well somewhere, you can reach out to them on Facebook or LinkedIn and say, hey, I want to send you something. What's your mailing address? What's the best mailing address? If you phrase it that way, they know they don't have to give you their home address. They can give you their postbox address or a business address if they're still cautious about who you are. But I've had very few people refuse to give me their address. Very few. And that's okay. It's totally okay. To some degree, this is always going to be a numbers game, right? So that's another follow-up that you can use. And you distance your follow-ups at regular intervals. You put people on your mailing list, right? Which is not the same as the original email. That's a personal one. Yes, it's a template, but it's a personal one person sending it to one person at a time, right? It's not a group send. Your group send emails should go out regularly, consistently. Some people do it once a month. Some people do it once a week, whatever. If you're going to do email marketing, and I recommend that you think about this very hard, because I know there are some people out there saying it's not necessary. I disagree with that completely. And I know I often say things that other people don't agree with, or I seem to disagree with other people, but I've got really good reason for doing that. The coaches that I've worked with, and I've worked with some pretty awesome coaches who have worked with awesome coaches. So this goes up to the top of the business chain. It's not me, it's the people I'm working with, right? Say that email marketing is really important. And there are many, many reasons for that, which I will go into another day. So you want your email marketing, you can put them on your newsletter. So they get a newsletter from you once a month, right? So that's good follow-up, a regular, consistent once a month. They're connecting with you on Facebook or LinkedIn or whatever other social media things there are, right? They're getting a text message from you occasionally, maybe. Maybe if people don't want to give you their mailing address for happy birthday, you could text them something, right? I've done that too. Sometimes all I've got is a phone number. Sometimes I don't even have somebody's name because I have these text this keyword to this number for some information, right? And unless that communication continues and they respond, I don't even have their name. So I will text them a little message Obviously, I'm not going to know their birthday either. Chances are, but you never know. It might have been, we might have connected about birthday cards, and maybe I have their birthday, but I don't have anything else. If I don't have their mailing address, I can send them I wouldn't send an email. I can do something on Facebook, or I can send them a text message. A text message is better because it's unique and it shows that you were thinking about them beforehand. A Facebook message is, oh gosh, I've just noticed all these other people are messaging on them on Facebook. I better message them on Facebook too. It's not so caring, you see? So, and that's just one of the things. I think things through and I do things for a reason. So when I say I recommend doing it that way, I have thought about it. Not necessarily perfect, and it's not necessarily exactly right for you, but there's always a reason why I say things. I don't just pluck ideas or listen to other people and copy what they say, because it doesn't work for everybody. Sometimes it hasn't worked for me. So your strategy, a Facebook connection, an email, follow that up in however many days you decide is appropriate with a text message or a different social media, or a phone call if they're worth it. If you're going to sell them a house that's worth, $500,000 or something, it's probably worth spending the time making a phone call. If you've got a really sophisticated and ever so clever system, it can make a phone call for you. Yeah, we've got a system like that. It can actually make phone calls for you. They're pre-recorded messages, right? And they say, hey, I emailed you last week. I was just thinking about you. Hope everything's okay. I look forward to hearing from you soon. If you've got too many people to connect with, right? That's up to you. Only you know that. Which is why sometimes it's worth connecting with me to actually do a brainstorming session and figure this out. And I do that for free. I'll sit with you and brainstorm this. You can email me at Andrea@PhD and follow up. You can text me at 858-252-1190. Okay, do you understand how it works? You get into a system. Now, each time they don't communicate, they don't respond, they're non-respondent or non-responding, you leave it a little bit longer before you reach them again. Okay, so if they're not responding, you don't keep communicating every 48 hours or every 7 days or something like that. So I start off with the same day, 24 hours, 3 days, 7 days, 2 weeks. No, I do 7 days and then 7 days again, and then 2 weeks and then 2 weeks again, and then 1 month and then 1 month again. And then I put them, I just leave them on my monthly newsletter, and I send them a holiday card, Mother's Day, Father's Day, birthday, whatever fits in, and very occasionally send a little email or reach out to them in social media. And all those things that I write are templates that I copy and paste that are already prepared. Why? So that I don't have to think. Because the more I have to think about unimportant things like this, the less time I can focus on big things and look after my clients and come up with new ideas to how to help them, right? So if it's just a little message that says, hey, met you at such and such an event, really looking forward to connecting, here's my calendar link. It does take a certain amount of mental energy to rewrite that every single time. Now, what was it? How did I phrase it before? Especially if you came up with a really good way of phrasing it, right? Just paste it somewhere. Paste it in a Word document or OneNote or Google Keep or something like that so that you can find it again easily. Just copy and paste. Use people's names as much as possible, especially when you're starting the communication. Okay, I know it's much, much quicker not to do so, but that half a second or 2 seconds of copying and pasting really isn't worth it. Okay, so last week we talked about what information to give people and how to present yourself when you're networking with them. Today we've talked about the strategy of how you're going to follow up with them. And you need to sit down and write this down. And please reach out to me here if you have questions. If you're ready to talk to me, go there and click the button that says book a session, make a call, have a call, book a Zoom call, whatever it is, book a brainstorming session, book a get to know you session, whatever it is that it says on that button, because I change it from time to time. Click that and that goes to my calendar. Book a time with me. Okay, I'm perfectly happy to sit and go through this with you. And then on another day, maybe next week, we can talk about what tools you need and the different tools that you can use to join this all together, because I've got some absolutely awesome things. Now, I've talked a long time today. I did not mean to talk this long. I never mean to talk that long, actually. So I'm going to end this broadcast right here. This was Andrea Kuchin from My Home Biz Tips, brought to you by PhD in Follow-Up. But the tips are valuable whether you're in a home business or not. It doesn't matter whether you work from home or not. If you're a solopreneur or an entrepreneur and you want to grow, you need good follow-up practices. Okay. Oh, and tomorrow I'm being interviewed on Fave Business. I will link, I'll put some more stuff in the Facebook page about that, and I'll link afterwards, after we've done it, I'll link the interview onto this. Okay, cheerio everyone. Have a fabulous week, and I will see you next week. Actually, I've got, okay, so just checking the comments. I'll get back to you later. I can answer that in full. Okay, thank you so much. I will see you next week. Let's see if I can get the closing right this time. Bye, everyone. Bye-bye.